Welcome to the Castle Country Real Estate Podcast. This is episode number 7. I'm Josh Madsen from Real Estate Titans here in Price, Utah, and super happy to be back with you this week to give you the latest on Carbon and Emery County real estate, what's going on, a little real estate hot tip, and some general market information. So it's rolling into the second month of doing the podcast. I'm having a great time doing it. Obviously, you can always reach out to me directly, and I'll have my contact information in the show notes so you can get a hold of me if you need any real estate help in the area, or maybe you just have some simple questions or maybe a comment on the podcast itself. So be sure to do that. So to kick things off, I always like to start with what's going on in the local market in terms of how many active listings are out there, how many properties have sold. We're looking at 88 properties. It seems like this magic upper 80s number just kind of hovers in terms of what we're seeing. Those are active single-family homes that we're seeing between Carbon and Emery County combined. And in the past week, 7 houses have sold. And so we're just seeing that cycle. I know sometimes I probably sound like a broken record, but that's just how it is right now. We're seeing sort of a pretty level field of active properties and about the same amount of properties closing each week. So it's just sort of replenishing itself at this point. Interest rates are staying sort of in that 5.5% if we were just to throw out an average. So buyers, it's still a good time to get out and purchase. It's still a good time to sell as a seller as well because people are still getting top dollar. As far as general market information, we've got a market that we've been talking a lot about the inflation out there. We've been talking a lot about additional supply of houses in the market. And today I wanted to focus on 3 reasons to buy a home in today's shifting market and kind of just give an idea about adding to what we've been listening to in the podcast the last couple weeks and sort of add some specific tips. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is as buyer demand moderates, you're going to see the intensity of bidding wars ease. I've mentioned this a couple times because in the last 2 years, there was multiple offer situations almost all the time, and it was significantly more common that you're bidding against 5, 10, 20, I've even heard of 30 offers on certain homes, and it kind of got crazy. So because more homes are on the more properties and homes are on the market, it's less likely you're going to have as much competition. Now, could you see other offers in the mix? Absolutely. But I think what we're going to see is as these numbers start to go up of active properties, you're going to have less bidding wars. And in Carbon and Emery County, I think especially, although we could still use more housing to ease prices and there's just more people moving to the area, I think you're not going to see this as much in terms of being a buyer. And that's nice because it means we've got to be aggressive enough to get the right offer taken, but maybe not competing against so many people. The second reason to buy a home in today's shifting market is fewer buyers are bidding over asking price, even though it's still a competitive market. And one of the things that we were seeing, and I've mentioned this as well, is people were offering over asking price consistently for the last 2 years. And a lot of the ways that they were getting their offers taken was doing what's called an appraisal gap, and they were paying in cash. So whatever the asking price was, people were going above and beyond that, and then they were telling the seller in the offer, hey, I'm willing to pay cash above asking price to make up the appraisal gap. And this is where, even if you didn't get in a bidding war, so to speak, with people, sellers were often looking at that the above asking price and seeing if you could do it in cash to make up the difference. So you're going to start seeing less of that. Again, kind of like we were just talking about before, as you have more properties on the market, it sort of eases some of these problems. Also, I think you've seen the appraisal prices start to come up. and that's a really good thing too. So what people are seeing on the market in terms of price is generally people, if you're pricing correctly, which is really what you should do as a seller. We're starting to see the appraisals for at least the last 6 months have started to settle out, and so what you're seeing on the market, although it might be higher in price than you're used to, doesn't necessarily mean it's not at a reasonable value, and it's going to appraise at value. So that's kind of what I'm seeing out there. Number 3 is housing inventories increased. We've been talking about this consistently every week. We're hovering around that 85 to 90 single-family homes in Carbon and Emery County combined, but that's still more than there was. Even a year ago, I remember seeing like 30 properties between the 2 counties, and that's just not a lot of houses when you're looking to buy or sell, or maybe you're looking to upgrade and move out of your house and sell it and go somewhere else. So even the fact that we've got about 3 times as many houses out there than we did a year ago, it's a better situation for everyone. And like I said, it's still a strong seller's market. You can get top dollar for your house because there's not an excess of properties. There's still demand there, but as a buyer, it's nice to see that inventory number go up. So that kind of gives you a little market analysis locally. Everything that I talked about definitely applies to our area here in Utah, and it's definitely something to keep track of. So moving on, like every week, I know hopefully if you've been watching the podcast or listening to the podcast for the last 6 weeks, you know that I like to do a real estate hot tip and get you excited about thinking about buying and selling real estate, things that you can do to increase your property value, or tricks that you can put in your toolbox as you're a buyer setting out to find your next great home. And what I wanted to do on this one was basically talk a little bit about some home selling tips for 2022 and how to prepare your property. So again, sort of another checklist. Sometimes it's nice to have those little bullet points that you've got that hey, this is exactly what we're going to do, is hop right into it, and we've got these 3 things that we're going to try and do. So number 1, I just mentioned this, price at a reasonable market value. Absolutely one of the most important things is, as a realtor, is I want to help my seller price their home appropriately, because we want to capture the people that are qualified to purchase that home. We don't want to just shoot for the moon and then try to trim it back, because that first couple days you really want to see action on the property. You definitely want to get top dollar, and you want to induce a situation where more buyers are seeing it and they're offering what the value of the home is. So make sure to look at good comparables. As a realtor, that's what I provide my sellers, is I go in, I get comparables, or comps as we sometimes call them. And what we're going to find is the properties that have sold in the most recent amount of time that are similar, and we're going to price it accordingly to try to get the maximum top dollar value for that home. And that's a service I provide, obviously, as a realtor to my clients, to make sure to get them the most money in the transaction. So number 2 is know where to list your property. This is a super important one as well. Now, using a realtor like myself, I can get it on the multiple listing service or the MLS. That's a lot of the reason to use a realtor is to get it on there. Now you might be thinking, well, I can just throw it on Zillow, or I can put it on some of these other places. A good thing about using the multiple listing service through a realtor like myself is basically we're able to put it out to all those places as well. So when I list a property with a client, it's going on the MLS, multiple listing service. It's also going on Zillow. It's going on Trulia, and it's going on realtor.com. And then additionally to that, one thing I do for my clients is I like to add it on KSL, because if you're from Utah, Craigslist isn't necessarily used as much as KSL. So I always do KSL. Sometimes I do Craigslist if the client wants it, Facebook Marketplace, and then obviously places like Instagram and other social media sites that bring in a lot of people that are looking. So knowing where to put it is incredibly important. And then there's even other things you can do. One time in the last year, I had a land listing, and I wanted to find a really a buyer for this land. It was a unique property in southern Utah. And so I put it in a land magazine where a lot of people tend to look for that type of real estate. So as a realtor, it's really important to put stuff as many places as possible and have a strong marketing plan, and that's what I always do. Number 3, hire a realtor in your market. And you definitely want to have the top realtor in your market that can help you assess the situation and create a marketing plan that's going to be good for your home. Imagine hiring someone that's not familiar with Price, Helper, East Carbon, Castledale, Huntington, these areas. Maybe they don't understand what the properties look like, the homes, the things around it that make it valuable. And so this is a really important thing, is to hire somebody who's an expert, not only in the field of real estate, but also in the market that we live and work in. And so that's an incredibly important thing. That's why I'm doing this podcast, to make sure you know that I know what's going on here and can help you with your home, or help you find a home if you're a buyer. So that's your real estate hot tip for the day, and hopefully helps you out, especially you sellers out there or people considering selling their home. A couple of the things that you should start thinking about. To kind of wrap things up, what's going on in Castle Country this weekend, there's a couple things I was going to bring up that I haven't mentioned before. Number 1 is the farmers market. That's happening on Saturday, which is tomorrow from 9 to noon. Definitely check that out. Another one I thought was really cool was the Desert Wave Triathlon. And this happens at the Desert Wave Pool. It's a 300-meter swim, then a run up Wood Hill, which is a 5K. And then there's also some biking down Avalanche Road to the Butch Cassidy single track. So should be a fun little event that you can do in a little bit shorter of a triathlon. And then, of course, Helper Vibes. Starting to wrap up that kind of season, but you can check that out down on Helper Main Street. So again, I'm Josh Madsen. I'm at Real Estate Titans here in Price, Utah, and really excited to be doing this podcast, and I appreciate you listening every week and getting all of your market information. So if you need anything, reach out directly, shoot me a text or a phone call, 801-388-4047, or you can email me, josh@madsen.team, or hit me on the Instagram at madsen.team as well. And until next week, I'll be back next Friday with another episode, and have a great weekend.